Jobs.
I call the Honourable Minister, Hekia Parata. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā tātou te whare, tēnā koutou katoa. I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of my colleagues here today. I'd like to congratulate you, Mr Speaker, for your reappointment to the role, and I'd also like to welcome all members of the House to this, the 50th Parliament of New Zealand. It is a privilege to be addressing you today as the Minister of Education. I have long been passionate about education, and as Minister, I am keen to make a contribution. New Zealand is a first world nation, it has first world aspirations, and we must have a first world economy in order to deliver on those aspirations. And education is a critical contributor to this in two ways. It builds the social and cultural capital of our country and of our society, and it contributes to the economic growth and productivity of our economy. Education is the key, and that is why it is so important that we ensure that all learners in the New Zealand education system have the opportunity to do well, to do to the best of their potential and their ability. We know that we have a system that has many world-class features. We know that we have a system in which there are many world-class practices, and we know that we have a system within which we have many world-class practitioners. And the challenge for us is to ensure that, rather than the present situation we have of 4 out of 5 students being well served by our system, we are an aspirational government. We want there to be brighter futures for all New Zealanders. We want 5 out of 5 students to be doing well, to have a system that supports them to do well and allows them to realise their full potential, that they are equipped for the 21st century with the skills and the education and the learning that means they can navigate that with success for themselves and for their families. And I'm pleased to say that our education system has been recognised internationally. In 2 recent OECD reports, the Programme for International Student Assessment, which we know as PISA, has told us that New Zealand's best students continue to compare favourably with all the best students in the rest of the world, and it is something that we wish to maintain as a country. A second report that has recently been released, as recent as last Friday in fact, by the OECD, which comments on the evaluation and assessment framework of 24 countries, commends New Zealand for its coherent national agenda, commends New Zealand for the way that it has invested in evaluation and assessment all the way through our system. It talks about the successful work that we have done in embedding NCEA and the moderation within and between schools. It talks about the good work that the Education Review Office has done in its assessment of schools. And yes, it talks about and commends us for the introduction of national standards and encourages New Zealand to continue to implement this because it will continue to provide information in plain language for both the schools and for the parents of schools. And that is exactly what we intend to do. Why? Because we are committed to raising achievement by and for all students in our system. We have a twofold challenge. We have the challenge that those parts of the system that are working, and those are significant parts, that we continue to raise that as well. Because we are not a government that rests on our laurels. We want to see ever greater improvement, ever greater achievement and attainment, because we want smarter, faster, more nimble New Zealanders capable of positioning New Zealand well in the international economy, to be able to see and take the opportunities that their perspicacity will deliver to them. And we must continue to raise achievement to that end. At the same time, those parts of the system that have consistently underserved cohorts of our population, being Māori, Pacifica, children from low socioeconomic backgrounds, we need to change the system in that regard so that it will perform better for them, and in so doing continue to raise the performance of the rest of the system. So the overriding priority of this government is to raise achievement, and we recognise that recognise that that begins at the earliest years of life. And that is why we have committed to 98% of all 0 to 5-year-olds having early childhood education before they enrol at school. We know that across the country we have an average of 94%, but again for Māori and Pacifica students and for those from low socioeconomic homes, they do not have the same level of participation. And we are dedicated to seeing that rise because we know that children who have had quality early childhood education will enjoy a stronger educational trajectory as they transition into the compulsory sector, pass through that and on into the tertiary sector. So we will continue to invest in early childhood education. As the Prime Minister said in the House earlier this afternoon, we have invested the most ever in this sector at $1.4 billion, and we will continue to support the success there. In primary school, what national standards have done for us has allowed us to focus on how we can raise the quality of learning interaction between the teacher in the classroom and the student engaged in that learning experience. It is important for the student, it is important for the teacher, it is important for the school, and it is extremely important for their family and community to know how well their child is doing, what their child needs in terms of support, how the school might provide that, but equally important, how the family and community can support that as well. We're very focused on those vulnerable times of transition between early childhood and primary school and from primary school into secondary school. And we want those transitions to be made confidently and happily so that the student will continue to learn. And the way that will occur is to have an unambiguous, unrelenting focus on the learner at the centre of the system. And I want to make it very clear that in my time as Minister of Education, I will be unrelenting in the focus on the learner. I will champion the education sector because I appreciate that it is populated by very committed, very talented teachers and other parts of the education profession. And they deserve our thanks and support, but they also deserve our expectation that we will continue to raise achievement and attainment, not just for those who are already succeeding, but for those who are not well served in the system. We have focused a lot of effort, and my colleague will shortly speak with more authority and comprehensivity about the tertiary part of the education sector. But one of the bridging mechanisms that this government has introduced is Youth Guarantee, because we recognise that young people need to have available to them options and choices and pathways that clearly guide them towards opportunities to enter the labour market, to be employed, to start their own businesses, and to be able to make good choices and have good life chances about what it is they can achieve, not only for their families, but also in contributing back to this country. In that regard, this government has invested $1.5 billion in ultra-fast broadband. To date, we have invested a further $160 million so that schools can link up to the ultra-fast broadband, and we're about to invest a further $300 to $400 million in the Network for Learning, because we recognise that our young people need to be able to navigate a digital environment. And so we will be making available to them a 24/7 e-learning opportunity. And we will be supporting schools to ensure that they are able to take advantage of this technology. We are working with whānau in the teaching workforce and investing in professional learning and development, because we know that the quality of the teacher in the classroom makes the most difference to the learning experience of the student. And that is where we will put our investment and support. It is with the teacher. We are also interested to ensure that a world-class feature of our education system, which is the governance, the self-managing boards of schools, are also fit for purpose in a 21st century, and we're keen to continue the conversation I have begun about what further refinements we might want to look at in terms of boards. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate this government's commitment to Canterbury. Canterbury is a resilient, stoic community that in respect of education, almost every school has suffered some kind of damage or challenge, as well as every early childhood centre. We are working with Canterbury to identify what the opportunities are for not only recovering and restoring the education network in Canterbury, but taking advantage of the opportunities to see how we might position for the 21st century. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to participate. I'm honoured to be the Minister of Education, and I look forward to reporting to this House on continued achievement by all New Zealand learners. Kia ora tātou.
Order. I call the honourable